Hello viewers, today is a different day. We are hosting a medical practitioner who was abandoned at birth for reasons he's going to tell us, and he ended up in a care institution where he also interacted with people who are living with disabilities, some of them developmental disabilities. So he's going to give us a sneak peek of what it means when someone with disability ends up in a care institution. So without further ado, I'll ask him to introduce himself.
My name is Joroge John. I'm a married man to one wife. I'm a nurse midwife by profession, and I'm honored to be in this program to share my story. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, So I want us to delve right into it because my introduction is you were abandoned. So how did that transpire?
Joroge John was born in the year 1981.
81?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
That is as per the documents available.
Mm-hmm.
So the story is that I was left as a fresh birth. There are two versions of it. That one I was left in the in the current busy Mwindibingo Street, along the University Way.
Yeah.
Probably that meant something.
Like
on a
what?
lighter note.
Yeah.
I'll be a studious person.
Okay.
And the other one is that I was abandoned right after birth. And my mom gave birth to me, and right at the moment, of course, there is that which we call now in my profession term as a nurse, what we call a quick head-to-toe exam. And my mom noticed that I had a disability. To be specific, I had what we call Spina Bifida. And later on, of course, probably, it would, of course, manifest because it manifested in that I had incontinence of urine. Also, at the moment, there was some special features into my body, which now probably may have made my mom to feel a little bit hard to walk with me in the next life with her. So that could have been the more reason probably she left me. Yeah. This is something I have observed as a nurse while working in Kijabe and many other institutions where we get mothers who deliver, and when we have to reveal unto them the disability nature of their newborn lovely babies.
Yeah.
Some of course, we call it the bonding in the first few 1 hour or 30 minutes, or even the first minute, that glance. So that would have been the reason. I now can say that with a lot of confidence. That would be the reason that she left me.
Yeah.
She placed me in a strategic place because I'm told that it was near the bus stop, the Kenyatta National Hospital bus stop, and so definitely the record says that it was a policeman who picked me up, took me back to Kenyatta, and I was referred to the infamous children's home. It was one of the largest care institutions those years. Still exists up to today, though there are so many changes that have taken place. But that is where I came from, and I'm glad that it became a place for shelter, a place I could call home, a place where I grew, and my basic needs were met.
Yeah. So just let me ask you. So you never got to know your mom?
To date, no.
And would you know? Is there anyone who tells you, like, when you were picked at the bus station, do you know if you were crying? Was it hot, or do you know those details?
Not really.
Yeah.
I've tried to have a sitting with some of the caregivers, and they tell me that yes, it seems you are wrapped in swaddling clothes, just like any other newborn baby. And of course, sometimes they are shy. Any senior mother or parent would sometimes be shy to give such details. Yeah. But that is the circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've also mentioned that in your career, like, you've noticed that mothers fail to bond with their children when they notice that the kid has a disability. So are there some who still abandon their kids today?
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. And what's the rate? Is it?
Basically, I think with years
Mm-hmm.
of that creation of awareness into life with disabilities,
Yeah.
and I think with the changing ways of how people now understand and take up persons with disability, the rate at which we are getting abandoned kids, of course, who have disability versus those who don't have, it's almost equal.
Yeah.
Because again, it depends with the midwife who assists to birth that baby or the team. And the way you help the mother to uptake that information during those first few hours will really matter. If you give hope to that baby and mother, the parents will, the reception will be much different than that carefree attitude. I'm sorry to say, again, we medics sometimes find ourselves in the wrong corner where we start naming the newborns or even patients with either their conditions and disabilities. If you asperse, if you lay any doubts, and the mother reads your negative face language, it will affect.
Yeah.
But if you give hope and tell the mother that this is a living baby, she or it will live and to become great persons. And at times I've been there as a real life experience. I had to share stories to many mothers, and especially in Kijabe, where we have these babies who have what we call hydrocephalus and Spina Bifida. Of course, for those who know that the heads of the babies tend to grow big.
Yeah.
But with the current medical care in our country, and we thank God for that, that is being taken care of right at the birth, so that babies don't have such burdening disability aspects or complications.
Yeah. So, now you've moved from the street, now you've been brought to this care institution.
Yes.
Based on what you know, at what point do you receive treatment, and how long does it take for you to heal or the diagnosis?
Wow, thank you. It's one thing to be in a care institution.
Yeah.
It's another thing for the management or the persons involved to decide or to see the need for you to have what we'll call probably corrective surgeries.
Yes.
And I remember for me, things were as normal as they were. As I said, I had incontinence, so I could wet myself. I used to wear special diapers. It was a bit challenging, especially during the cold seasons. You can imagine a young baby or a young child who is wet, or every other time. There are few caregivers. You're over 300 kids, so the attention is definitely divided. The staffs who are taking care of you, now I know, were poorly enumerated. And so some of them just did what they could from their own hearts, not because they were being paid or such, but some of them it was their intuition, natural intuition to just care.
Yeah.
I could tell for several years trainings were few to improve their care techniques and aspects and technicalities and all that. Of course, I'm told I had several admissions as a baby due to pneumonia as a result of that wetness every other time. I'm told they tried, the nurses who were there tried, of course, to seek advice on what could be done then in Kenyatta Hospital. Of course, due to lack of special medical attention then in the 1980s and of course 90s, a few corrective surgeries or interventions were existing. Not until in 1992, I was in class 4, and there came a visiting surgeon to the institution by the name Dr. Bransford with Dr. Topol. They were missioners with the AIC Church, and they happened to visit our institution together with the many other institutions all over the country. and they were specifically interested in correcting what we now call polio. And they assisted and they did several corrective surgeries to many of my brothers and sisters to enable them probably walk a little bit upright, use less assistive devices so that they could be able to take care of themselves, so that they require less and less of being assisted. And at that time, of course, I remember the mantra in our primary school was to please get yourself an education so you don't go to beg in the streets. Funny enough, or sadly enough, disability was associated with begging in the streets. But I remember the team of teachers and the caregivers really challenged us every day. Get yourself an education because you can become greater. Your disability should not limit you. And actually later on, when one of our teachers designed the school anthem, and there were 2 words that determination enables, and that has seen us this far.
Yeah.
So until 1992, when the medical team there then of course introduced me to Dr. Topol, Dr. Bransford, and they had a look at me and they said, well, we could begin a journey on you. It will not be a one-time thing. It will take several surgeries on your body to see whether we can correct one, the incontinence, so that you live a comfortable life, and the fact that you are now heading to high school. 4 years from then was not far. Of course, there were special schools up to date in our country, but again, that comfort of not having that kind of smell, urine smell, especially for an adult, it's a bit a nuisance. One of the worst moments that experience was when I was denied an opportunity to go to the National Drama Festivals, simply because I would have been a nuisance to the rest of the Nairobi team. And so I didn't get to the National Drama Festivals, National Arena. The following year, in 1992, when my first surgery was done, I managed to be in the team where we went to Nyeri, and we won. Yeah, but of course, that's just a tip of the iceberg. There is more to that.
Yeah, of the things you've gone through.
Yes.
So you are telling me that you were born in 81 and your first corrective surgery was in 92.
Yes.
So that's like 11 years.
Exactly.
And at this point, are you from when now you start having some form of self-awareness, do you get bullied? Do you start noticing the environment that you are in?
Yeah, it was quite challenging. One, I couldn't involve myself with so much of child play with the rest, except for a few who would understand. But it was a bit hard, especially because my smell was an identity. So when I could get into a group, you could see faces. Funny enough, again, whoever was making faces also had their own peculiar disabilities, you know.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I could view myself as better off. One, I had a ability to walk, despite the fact, and it's good to let viewers know that Spina Bifida would have a lot of complications, and the worst is when now it affects your lower limbs, and again it will affect your long call, the ability to hold, and even the short call. So Njoro was a little bit advantaged in that my mobility was not severely affected at all.
Yeah.
Of course, so it was challenging at times. There were many times that I was alone, one side of the institution, probably in the shamba, in the farm. Yeah, I shied off a little bit, mixing myself every other time.
Yeah.
I could be okay in the morning because I'm fresh, I'm not wet, but it was difficult. Sometimes you're in the middle of a class, an exam, and your diaper is fully soaked, and so it leaks to the floor. So I had to come and clean up the mess. It was not easy, but I had to, and that meant also starting to wash my clothes at an early age. All of them. Because I felt it was burdening for anyone else to handle my clothes. So I'm the one who I had to learn to soak them, clean them up, rinse them, and dry them up of course, during cold season, as I said,
Pneumonia.
they could take time to dry up.
Mm.
Yeah, so I had to use other alternatives, clothes and all that. Sometimes there could be no jelly to apply, especially around the thighs, to prevent that burning sensation of urine. It was challenging. My beddings, I had to wake up at the middle of the night almost twice, thrice to change, because again I couldn't sleep with the diapers. It would be more burdening and worse.
Yeah.
And so life in the beginning was a little bit tough. Yeah.
So now, past, come to the place now when you start having friends.
Mm-hmm.
What other disabilities did you start noticing with your friends?
Yeah, of course, the very obvious one was what we used to call polio.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, and again, we know during those years, there was a lot of neglect, including kids being hidden in their homes. And so institutions and the ministries, I think they started going around the villages and getting those kids and bringing them over to at least for better care,
Yeah.
rather than in their homes. So there was polio. There was also mental, learning disabilities. We had 2 kids with blindness for many years. And then of course we had autism, a lot of them.
Yeah.
We had street children.
Mm-hmm.
We had street children who would be brought through the courts, through committal orders. And then of course we had Down syndrome, from the simple form to the severe forms of Down syndrome, where the kids totally 101% had to rely on being taken care of, right from feeding, bathing, everything. They were bedridden, literally, so turning and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all manner of kids.
Yeah.
We've grown, and I'm humbled to say that I've grown with all forms of disabilities, from the simplest to the most severe ones,
Yeah.
in their children's home.
The reason I'm asking you this question is because I'd like us to, for you, who has, because you've lived through that experience, to paint a picture of the plight, the highs and the lows of someone who is having these disabilities and is being taken care of by this institution or through the system. So that for someone who may be watching and is wondering what to do with their kid, they can have an insight to this other world. So when it came to time to go to school, what was it like? Was there a structure of you've attained the school going age, so hop into school?
Yeah, interesting. So I remember clearly I was in nursery schools in 1985, when the Kobole coin was, of course, introduced in our country.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have enjoyed that moment of economics in our nation. And then in 1986, 1987, of course, now I went to class 1. So the system, we had a special school inside the children's home. It was registered. It was fully government taken care of, in that we had teachers who had a special training. And even those who came from normal schools, they later were taken to KISE, that is Kenya Institute of Special Education, for a 2-year program for training for kids with special needs. I remember very well. And what used to happen is that if you attained the age age, you checked in the classroom, and the teachers would now probably, of course, for those kids who had mental learning disabilities, they were assessed, and we had a special unit for them. We had a deaf class for those who had impaired hearing impaired issues. And luckily, we are happy that they had gadgets that could help them even learn. For the kids with disabilities, they were taken to Joytown, Vika, where we have the school for vision impaired.
Yes.
and they could come over for holidays.
Mhm.
So the two guys benefited from that. So I went to school, and I remember personally was picked by my class 1 teacher, who later on becomes like a mom to me. And school environment changes everything. I mean, you are in school, there is that uniformity of students. We didn't have uniforms.
What were you wearing?
For the longest period of time until class 6, we had home clothes. So, but we had a code. We had a code of dress code where at least you could wear a shirt, a white shirt. Sometimes we had a mixture of uniforms. Not until I was in class 6 where we were introduced an equal school uniform. Of course, when we went to other schools, we could see they have uniforms. So the school arranged that we have a uniform.
Yeah.
So the teacher almost became my mom because she picked me by her hand. And I remember what used to happen is that the teacher came and mentioned number 1 to 20. So if you had your name, number 1, so and so, then my name was mentioned, but I was asked to wait. And I remember when now everybody, of course, you are being called out and you ran to class 1. It was so joyous. School changed everything. School gave us hope. School gave us kind of an equality atmosphere. School made us happy because we learned. We learned that despite us being in such an institution then, and despite the challenges, there were challenges, and I think probably we'll mention about those challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But the school changed. It was a game changer. Yeah. So my teacher, she passed on. She was Mrs. Kimani. Where
How
I
old were
also
you when she passed on?
She passed on when I was in Form 2.
Mm-hmm.
But
so she had walked through.
Yeah, she had worked with me for a long time. At one point, we had thought I would probably be adopted by them, but the law couldn't allow. So we made a kind of a local arrangement where there was almost a partial adoption, where I could even during the weekends visit her home place, be with them the whole day, and that's where I learned several things: fetching water from the river, doing herding. We had a lot of flocks then, farming and all those things, and they became a part of me to date.
Yeah.
So going to school was everything. It meant everything. However, there was one challenge. The school reached only to class 6.
So from there?
So it was the decision, it was the discretion of the management to take you to class 7 and 8 outside the school.
Yeah.
But it was until they made that decision. So what happened, we found our bigger brothers and sisters repeating class 6 and 7 over and over, some 3 to 4 years.
Until, so as you are repeating, are you waiting for the management to find a school for you? Why are you repeating?
You don't know.
Oh, so it's until the day you...
They either decide to take you for a technical course. It was at their discretion.
Okay. So after how many, did you end up repeating school?
No. Once, yes.
You were lucky, or you found that things had changed? Because if you repeat for 5 years, a whole person has become a president and is going for the second
I only
term.
repeated class 3, and simply because we had to allow those who are bigger than us to proceed. Simply because, again, things changed. There was a class 7 and a class 8 structure that was built, and we were so excited.
Yeah.
And so the first group to do their KCPE was the group that did their KCPE in 1993. So before then...
Where did people used to go?
So for those who had caregivers and parents, that meant transition.
Yeah.
For those who didn't, they were either taken for a technical course, shoemaking, carpentry, and again, it was not obvious. It was at the discretion of the management. There were a lot of biasness. Opportunities came, sadly, but they never landed on us.
Where did they go?
They landed on some other people.
Who were not supposed to benefit?
Who are not supposed to benefit. Kids to the staff, of course, in the higher circles.
Yeah.
We remember two of them clearly. Capital FM wanted a T girl then. And they also wanted a messenger. And they were clear that they wanted 2 people from the institution so they can develop them and all that. And to date, we remember it was a little bit teary.
It went like that.
It went like that.
Did you know whose kid took up the opportunity?
Yes, we are aware.
Okay, we won't name names. We want to be safe. But do they give you any form of explanation? They just assume you are disabled, so you don't deserve.
They assume. There was a lot of assumption that, leave alone that, incidences like when we got visitors who could give us clothes, shoes, and probably at night, those shoes would be picked up and never again to see
from you.
Yes.
So somebody comes and wakes you up, and then they take your clothes.
No,
no
waking
you are sleeping
up.
And then you wake
It's
up
like,
and
let's have these shoes and clothes we'll keep for you. And they go. Food, the same. So I took uji without sugar for so long, not because there was no sugar, but simply because somebody decided. And every evening or every other day or weekend, somebody would pack it. I took a kg of sugar and unga to her home. One time, a lady from Kinago harvested a whole canter of foodstuffs.
From where?
From her shamba. She was a prayerful woman, so she came with a whole canter, her full harvest. And before, of course, every time we saw a vehicle with foodstuff, we were... Oh yes! Let's party, because diet, one of the challenges, and I'm mentioning this with a lot of humility, one of the challenges is that, and now as a nurse, I know, we were deprived of good nutrition. Not because it lacked, but simply because the way it was prepared, the amount
you were given.
We used to sometimes sleep hungry.
But there is food.
There is food. So this lady from Kinago brings foodstuffs. And before we offload it, she makes a prayer and gives a warning that whoever takes any foodstuffs outside that gate, only God knows how she or he will be dealt with.
They didn't listen.
We are human beings.
So bado ilitoka.
Ilitoka. And she came for the second time and she said, I am aware of a number of you whose homes, as we speak, are in chaos because you simply took out. I'm not saying you don't eat. You cannot muzzle. It's biblical. You cannot muzzle an oxen while it's farming for you. You can't. But taking it out and making this person who probably this is her or his only source of food, then it meant a curse. And we have seen those cases after he left the institutions. We've met some of them, and some of them have personally have been asked severally by some caregivers to just forgive them. It's been humbling. And because even that education opportunity we were denied.
So let me ask you, let's go a bit personal.
Sure.
You've said you've been asked to forgive. Are there instances that you felt like you were mistreated, like as Njoroge, because of your disability or being in the institution?
Yeah. Yes. As I gave that example of being denied to participate in the drama festivals. Two, given my own plight, in class 5, I said in class 4, I began a journey towards a medical corrective surgeries, a series of them, towards my life. And in class 5, I was taken to Kikuyu Hospital, and a catheter was inserted against my will. And we now know, and I now know, even as a nurse, even when I'm handling the pediatric patients, there is what we call that consent. Not a legal per se, but even before the caregiver gives me a consent, I have to also assess the body language of that young baby or young teenager or young adolescent girl or boy. But a catheter was inserted in the middle of drama festivals again. And so I was denied to attend the provincial drama festivals. No consent. I was just woken up one morning, taken to hospital. and a catheter was inserted.
So
Nobody explains why.
When you are at the hospital and then you realize what they're about to do, will you resist?
No, you can't. You'll be punished. So you do it because somebody else has just said. And this repeats itself, of course, much later while I had just done class 8. So all of a sudden, there were two groups. Oh, Njoro, you have to go for a surgery. Are you sure you go to Form 1 with this condition? And I started asking them, why? If it goes to the worst, I know I'll go to a special school where I'll fit in. My class 3 teacher, and I thank God for him, to date he's my mentor. And he's still a teacher in one of the special schools in Dagoretti. Helped us, and when we started doing drama festivals, created our own library, started learning computers, and that children's home life was taken away from us, and we were given a new, focus and hope in life. Defended and said, no, John, we know he could perform. By the way, I performed the best in 1996 KCP. I had 414 marks.
That's because Caribbean 400.
Yes, and so I knew I would either go to Mutwene High School, which was a good provincial school, or Joytown, which is one of the best physically challenged schools, which is a provincial school. I was ready. But I was made to go to a surgery in January of 1997 while everybody else was going to Form 1. And simply because the supervisor said, if you won't go to take the surgery, which nobody is explaining which kind of surgery, despite a 4-year follow-up surgery at Kijabe, because I kept on asking them, why don't you consult the Kijabe team and ask them whether we could have a visit and be explained what to do or expect before we go to Form 1. And that was a no. And so I was taken to Kikuyu Hospital, done a surgery by a pediatrician. It destroyed all the other corrective surgeries. So I had multiple leakages of urine. Then the surgeon, unfortunately, was from the AMREF. So she got an emergency call. And so she flew, just as the name is, a blind doctor. I was left in the hands of an orthopedic technician. No, doctor. Now, I now know also, as a nurse, there is no way an orthopedic surgeon would take care of pediatric surgeries. So I went to Form 1, 3 weeks to the end of Term 1.
And now you've gone back to where you started. Because
Zero, negative.
The corrective surgeries, they have been reversed.
Reversed.
So how do you feel at that point? Because you are a teenager.
No, I remember in Kikuyu Hospital. It was a Sunday. And that night I cried. I cried because everything else which I had hoped for was taken away. Every small milestone that had been made to reduce my incontinence was shuttered down. I had full of unforgiveness in my heart that night. But I think God is good because I knew Christ while I was young. I was in class 3. And so I had to learn to forgive. But I remember I took the hand of my church school teachers who visited me, and they really talked to me. Then the supervisor, realizing what had been done and the stories that she received from the hospital, because I spoke it out. I said, you destroyed my life, you changed my life, you never gave me an opportunity to go to Kijabe, you have messed things up and probably I'll now go back. I kept on telling you this surgery was not warranted. So she came on a Sunday afternoon and begged for forgiveness. I said, it's okay, tomorrow we'll take it. They asked me, what do you want? I told them, I want to go to school now. I don't want anything. With the incontinence. I know I'm going to a special school. Take me to the school. And there are only 3 weeks. I told them, no, staki, mimi nataka kwenda shule. I wanted to be away from that place.
Yeah, you needed a break.
I needed a break. It was too much for me to handle. And I went to school. In 3 weeks, I had done all the notes, sat for the exams, literally. And even copied notes for my 3 best friends. And I did an exam and I got marks 10 points shy of the halfway.
Yeah.
And my high school life began from there. Yes.
So, the questions that I want to ask now, let's go back and look at now someone with autism and Down syndrome who is not able to vocalize their disappointments.
Sure.
Through your eyes, like how are they handled?